Hi again everyone, hope you're doing okay. Do let me know how you're doing, it's nice to hear from you. In this video I'm going to be looking at the second lot of creatures in the world of the woods that are unique to the woods setting. I say unique to the woods setting, unique in culture and in name, if not necessarily unique in aesthetic or the kind of look of the creature itself. This week we're going to be looking at the Gnawlochs, and the Gnawlochs are a fairly recent addition to the world of the woods. They weren't in the original first edition rulebook. They have popped up for the second. And you'll remember last week I was saying that the origins of the Miri were in that I wanted to create a Fimir army for myself for Warhammer Fantasy Battle. Well, funnily enough, a few years later, I found myself building a classic Skaven warband. Skaven being the Games Workshop ratmen, of course. And my favourite sculpts are the Jez Goodwin original rats. You'll hear me say my favourite sculpts are the Jez Goodwin a lot. I think Jez Goodwin is probably one of, if not my favourite sculptor. This is a realisation I've come to over the past year when I've said, oh, I really like that sculpt. It's generally been a Jez Goodwin sculpt. So my favourite are the Jez Goodwin sculpts, but when they're not expensive, there are a lot of them around. You're looking at £3 to £4 a sculpt most of the time, unless you pick them up in lots. But you need a lot of Skaven for even for a third edition Warhammer army. You need a lot of Skaven, and they didn't do an awful lot of Skaven slave figures. They're the cheap runty rats with just botched together weapons who were just flung in the face to overwhelm the foe. They didn't release a lot of those models, and you do need a lot of them. So I've been using the plastic regiments box sets, which are good, but I wanted to put some other variant sculpts in. So I thought I will sculpt some ratmen, and I will use those as the basis for my army. So I ended up sculpting ratmen, and then I wanted to put them into the woods. And now obviously Skaven are a trademark, although there are other ratty beastmen types around. There are the Veermen from, I think they're the Black Tree design ones. Ralph for Europe have some ratmen. Alternative Armies, I think, have some ratmen. Grenadier did some ratmen. So there are definitely some around. The idea of a humanoid rat or a anthropomorphic rat is not exclusive Games Workshop property, but the Skaven are. So I couldn't just shove them into the woods as that, and I didn't want to, because I do want the world of the woods to be quite a different feel and a different kind of setting to the Warhammer world and to whatever it's become under Age of Sigmar. So I wanted to have a very Iron Agey, Dark Agey, low fantasy, very British setting, and to try and fit the ratmen into that. So one of the things that the Gnawlochs draw on is Cornish smuggling folklore. So the name of their leader, Crom Ginger, is a reference to a Cornish nefarious famous smuggler. And the fact that they run goods across Talan La from through the Gnawlochs, which are and there's another Cornish reference for you. So if you hadn't spotted that before, the Gnawlochs, Gnawlochs, yeah. Yeah, you'll never take that seriously again. So they run goods through the Gnawlochs on their barges, and the barges are an idea partly that came to me because I used to live on a narrow boat, so I like the idea of canals and taking goods and having sort of long canal tunnels with flights of lochs inside them, and these ratmen living on these barges that sail under the surface, under everyone else's feet. I like that idea. So that's definitely in there. The wearing of the kind of kilts that they've got on are actually intended to be more Cornish than Scottish. Obviously, I've painted them up in tartan, so they then look Scottish, like the great kilts kind of swagged over the shoulder, and that's a bit of a pun, a bit of a play on the fact that the standard infantry unit in the Skaven is the clan rat. So we've got clan rats in clan tartan. But they're supposed to be more Cornish in their origin and in their dress. And the name Gnawloch comes from two places. It comes firstly from H.G. Wells, which is an odd choice maybe for a Celtic fantasy world, but H.G. Wells is a writer that I have loved since I was a young boy, and so there's the reference to the Morlocks from the Time Machine. Morlock, Gnawloch, they're gnawing their way under the earth, so Gnawloch instead of Morlock. But it does actually have a Celtic tie-in as well, because there's a creature in Irish folklore who is kind of the partner to the leprechaun, but the kind of wilder leprechauns are not benign entities, but these are the more malicious, the wilder, the more savage alternative to the leprechauns, and they're called the Gnawlochs, and they're not very widely known. They sort of lost out to the leprechaun, but they also had a part in forming the look and the background and the name of the Gnawlochs. So these are creatures that, like brownies, are covered in thick fur. The Gnawloch is covered in thick reddish fur. So it was appropriate to have a kind of furry rat creature as an interpretation of that. And the fact that the Gnawlochs, when they trade, they put on heavy cloaks and they try and disguise the fact that they're rats. They try and pass as humans, give some sense that they might be perceived as just hairy men who come to trade with the settlement. So that's a tie-in to Celtic myth there. So there's the origins of the Gnawlochs. They're a Cornish smuggling band living a subterranean lifestyle, not enslaved, but certainly a bit persecuted, so similar to the Morlocks. And they have this tie into the Irish Gnawloch in their aesthetics, their look, and the way that they interact with the Tuatha settlements. So next week I'm going to be looking at two different creatures very briefly, because there's not a lot to say about them, but the Fodden and the Gnawloch, which are not creatures that you will find mentioned anywhere in folklore. So I'm going to talk about those two next week. In the meantime, stay safe. I hope you have a nice week, and I'll catch you next time.